Good morning, everyone. My name is Simon Hamilton. I'm the Chief Executive of Belfast Chamber, and you're very, very welcome to this, our first ever Belfast Talks Business event. This is a new series that is kindly sponsored and supported by Ulster Bank. The whole purpose of this series of events over the next year is to touch on topical and fresh and relevant content and themes and trends that are very relevant to Belfast's economy, and particularly as we move into recovery and hopefully a better future for the city and its economy. We're going to kickstart the series with a subject which has been not too far from the headlines in the past year, and that's the subject of health, or more precisely, a healthy economy. And many people are unaware of the fact that Belfast is one of the world's leading cities in terms of healthcare technology. And what we're going to do over the next hour is to explore that growing sector, try to explain why Belfast is a burgeoning place for healthcare technology, and also to look at the future of that important sector globally as it develops in our city. And we're going to do that with the help of some leading figures from academia and from industry. But I mentioned that we're delighted that the series is sponsored by Ulster Bank. And I just want to hand over for a brief word of welcome to Aileen Lagan, who is the Director of Business Banking at Ulster Bank. Aileen.
Thank you, Simon. So good morning, everyone. My name is Aileen Lagan. I am Director of Business Banking at Ulster Bank. I moved into my current role in October 19, which was just in time for a global pandemic, which was great, but I have been with Ulster Bank for 20 plus years, mainly in the credit departments. At Ulster Bank, we have always admired the great work the Belfast Chamber does in advocating and supporting the city and the businesses within it. As such, we are delighted to have formed the Belfast Talks Business Partnership and are looking forward to some great events as we move through 2021 and beyond. I am particularly looking forward to hearing from the truly inspiring trailblazers within the healthcare and technology sector who are the panelists today. As a bank and a business, we have a long history in Belfast and across Northern Ireland, and we remain fully committed to the economic marketplace and supporting our business customers to invest and grow. We have ourselves backed that commitment to Belfast with a multi-million-pound refurbishment of our offices in Donegal Square East. We just need the conditions to be right to be actually getting to use them now. There is no doubt it has been a challenging 14 months for all of those in business, but it's also been great to see the business community has adapted, innovated and diversified to keep going and even excel. As a bank, our attention has rightly been on the COVID-related needs of our business customers. However, it feels the right time to be fully embedded in the economic recovery of Northern Ireland and the funding of growth and investment. And if you're interested, we have a very experienced team across all segments of business banking and would love the opportunity to talk to you about your banking needs. You can find full details of all our contacts on our Ulster Bank website. Finally, some of you today may be thinking about how you can grow and scale your business, and I am pleased to announce that we will be relaunching our Enterprise Accelerator program with a focus on fintech, climate and sustainability and high growth businesses. All the details are on our web pages if you search for Ulster Bank Accelerator. Thank you for your time today, and I hope this is the first of many enjoyable and informative events with Belfast Chamber. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you, Aileen, and once again, thank you to you and Ulster Bank for helping to make this series of events possible. So later on, we're going to hear from some local health tech entrepreneurs and hear about their success stories and how their businesses are doing exceptionally well here in Belfast and beyond. But to set the scene and to give us a sense of, I suppose, why Belfast has become a leading place in terms of healthcare technology, and to talk a little bit about what the future holds, we are really privileged to be joined by Professor Jim Mclaughlin. Jim is the Director of the Nanotechnology and Integrated Bioengineering Centre, or NIBEC, and we'll hear a little bit about that, I'm sure, later on. Jim is also co-founder and CTO of IntelliSense, and he was recognised in 2019 as one of the nation's lifesavers for his outstanding work in terms of health and well-being. Quite the accolade. So Jim, I'm going to give the floor to you, and you're going to take us through a presentation as to why Belfast has become a healthcare technology hub and what the future holds for our city and that sector in it. So Jim, it's over to you. Thank you.
Simon, thank you very much indeed for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me here today to give us a chance to talk about some new developments around what we are calling now the Centre for Digital Healthcare Technology, and possibly a little bit of the history. I have a longish slide pack here, and what the intention would be to basically circulate this later. I'll rush through some of the salient points and then be open for questions at the end. Now, many of you may have seen this sort of slide here. It was drawn up probably a couple of years ago. It wouldn't be 100% accurate as we sit today, but it sort of, I suppose, gives us an idea of what life and health sciences sector is like in Northern Ireland. It's not the biggest sector, around 10,000 jobs, but it's certainly from a GDP point of view and from a growth point of view, employing some excellent staff and lots of spin-offs from the area. It's always been deemed as a dynamic, very, very important sector here to grow. Ramdox, Almac and Norbert would be good examples of the type of indigenous companies we have, but probably you're not aware of the 150 other quite indigenous type companies that have sort of grown. You can see them in this diagram segmented into areas that are associated with the health service, which is a 4.5 billion service here in Northern Ireland. We have the stratified medicine, diagnostics, connected health, big data, clinical trials area, and then a whole ecosystem, both within the universities and surrounding the universities that actually do then support that. So undoubtedly, a very, very strong infrastructure and knowledge-based ecosystem here has been sort of formulated. And we've sort of been recently looking at that over this last couple of years following a matrix Northern Ireland Foresight strategy that I co-reviewed with, chaired with Rob Grundy in 2016, 2017, and really now put 3 city deals in the Belfast area at the sort of centre of this, and other ones that do exist up the northwest as well. So just getting into a little bit of detail then what this type of thing's about. I might just throw a very, very old slide up because these are, in my view, highly, highly important at the history of this. Now it actually goes back to 1966 when Pantrich used these 2 particular graphs to basically show that it was as simple as this, to basically show that people that have had a heart attack, the quicker that you can get to them, particularly within that first half hour, the more lives you save, but also the less damage and therefore the less care that's required to that particular patient. So the cost savings, the obviously benefits to life and the benefits to the healthcare system are hugely affected by the time here on how you can actually treat somebody. So in other words, a sort of connected health society or getting technology into the home was the dream of Pantrich that you see here. And out of that, he developed the defibrillator and his various versions of it. I'm very proud to actually hold this particular defibrillator in Nybeck. And sort of the reason for that and our connection to that is this gentleman here, Professor John Anderson. Of course, he passed away about six years ago. John would have been the biomedical engineer working with Pantrich, basically charged with, and I really mean charged, he was told every day to really develop this small portable device. That device, when it was developed, was world famous. It was the smallest device, this 6-pound device, and it had a very simple concept that there was more people that died of heart attacks in home than died of fires, yet every building has a fire extinguisher. That very simple concept was recognized in Utah, America, before it was actually recognized here. But when that whole concept was eventually realized here, we started to build up the whole basis of an industry and an ecosystem. Temtech, that some of you might remember, was the start of that, and eventually then HeartSign, which was a spin out from my own centre that I helped John get started at that stage. And then there was other companies that come out of that, IntelliSense and so on. There's been a Hardscape and many other companies that sort of formulated through that. And I think, John, way back in his early days, a very charismatic character. Certainly I was moved very much by his vision. And I would suggest that many others did. And out of that, we've had graduate courses, the biomedical engineering degree, where I know the story is continuously told. And Dan's here as an example of it. He maybe mention it a wee bit later. You know, would have been inspired very much by, you know, some of those early concepts of spinning out companies, developing innovation, and the multidisciplinary tasks that are required with some of these companies are not only fruitful, but they're extremely challenging, and that's what engineers like. They like that challenging to be the world's best. So this is the origin really of much. This is John Anderson, who then started my bank. I joined him as the first person to join John at that stage, and had the job of building it up. We were honoured to have Christian Bernard, the pioneer of the heart transplant operation, to open the building. Actually opened it on the day that there was the first chance for blacks in South America to vote. So we had the world's press at our door that particular day that we opened it. It was a great start to the whole centre. And I could suggest, I've counted up at one stage that there's maybe been 40 or 50 different companies that are in some way have been connected with this centre, that have either formed companies or spun out or in different ways. So it's been an absolutely great story, focusing very much on cardiac sensors, tissue engineering, nanomaterials, and clean techs, the sort of areas that we look at. We only list some of these companies because they're truly, truly connected. In other words, we have equity in them, and we see them the whole way through. But there's many other companies. We'll start with just the spark and the innovation that we've sort of created in these areas. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit, coming into the heart of Belfast. As many of you know, Ulster University is coming to the heart of Belfast. I'll show a few slides just at the end of that. But just next to that, we're setting up what's called the CDHT, the Centre for Digital Healthcare Technology. Hasn't been approved yet or funded, but most city deals are at the very last stages of approval. And I think the belief is that they will go on to be funded and start to be the new epicentre here, right in downtown Belfast, with a vision to stimulate academic, business, clinical, multidisciplinary collaborative partnerships and address clinical and healthcare challenges, world-class research, discovery and knowledge, skills development, co-ideation, which is absolutely core to this, we'll explain in a second, enhanced facilities and highly efficient productivity paths. That's where we believe is a weakness. Just interested in the Ulster Bank's view of what they would fund there. Usually put off some of this side because it's a long drawn out process, the life and health sciences or the health tech area. Our vision is to take that down with some I suppose, hard lessons I've learned in the innovation world of taking a long time to create the product, to create the innovation, and to commercially make successful companies like IntelliSense, Heartscape, and so on, and now HeartSign, which is now Stryker. So we brought together, as myself, there's Chris Nugent, the big AI star at the university, Turner, who's the molecular sciences, Mark Spence, the cardiologist at the Royal, and Paul Binney, our business manager. And this collection of companies are massively interested in co-locating with us. Now, you see some giants in here, there's some investment opportunities. There's some companies that actually don't locate in the Belfast area, but are now extremely keen to locate, to come into this ecosystem and to be in a new building beside us to co-ideate properly. And then we bring in all the catapults that you see here mentioned below, and we bring in a lot of our international collaborations to I suppose in university sometimes we keep a lot of that to ourselves, but we do have genuine collaborations throughout the world that I think the Belfast City Centre could avail of. We can open doors, countries from India to Japan to America, and very often we do that for Invest Northern Ireland. And I think to work collectively on things like that will be better for the future. I'm going to skip this slide, but it's just I've just mentioned some of the companies, and that's sort of a list of the different companies there that we're either involved in spinning out. These two are just involved in sort of spinning in. As we currently speak, we're at various stages of that. But there's 300 direct jobs that we've created just from these spin-outs here, just in the Belfast area, mostly around Hearn Road, and throughout the city and other places, having 50-60 million turnover a year. And it's driving medical devices. I'm always proud to see some of these medical devices in our hospitals and in our various factories and public buildings, etc. I always mention this as a stimulus. In 2016, 2017, we entered the X Prize competition to build a tricorder-like device. Ending up third in the world out of 400 was a big achievement, and we've now used this platform that we've developed to help be the next stage of generating a whole range of spin-outs that actually range into the safe water area and the medical area and many others using these what's called Internet of Things platforms. So again, skip some of these slides, but this really shows where deep capability is. It's about making sensors, healthcare sensors, tying in machine learning and artificial intelligence, and really helping the pathways in hospitals and helping getting that technology into the home that the public can actually use. So important during the pandemic, and I'm just going to highlight that in a second. Some big projects. These things do take money, and we don't go looking for it from the taxpayer all the time. A lot of these projects have to be funded directly by industry. We've track records this last couple of years of BT coming in and funding our BTIC centre, with Randux funding various projects, and we will win money either from Europe or around the world to fund. And you'll see, a few million in front of each of these projects, just to give you an idea. We rely on clinicians, and this is some of these two guys, Mark Spence and Ganesh Manoharan, two world leaders in the area of cardiology that many of you probably don't know much about. First and second pioneer in the world to develop the heart valve guide wire transplant, doing it basically with keyhole. And Mark Spence very much leading in the area of heart failure. So a great team to be working with. I don't intend to go through this here. I just want to really highlight that one of our main objectives is to address real patient needs and economic growth. You might find that strange coming from an academic team, but economic growth is what we believe we can achieve by creating the spin-outs. And the way to do that is to enhance productivity through what we call living lab projects. So actually taking the technology and the expertise and the capability and actually putting some of it into the hospital. So we have located a living lab in the Royal Victoria Hospital, and if you know the old wards 5 and 6 in cardiology, just on the ground floor of that. Simply, we had it 20 years ago when we spun out companies, we stopped it. Maybe we haven't just as much success, we're putting it back in again, and we're investing very heavily so that we co-ideate with clinicians and speed up the productivity dramatically, because we're getting the feedback very, very fast. The intention is to create over 1,000 jobs with this investment of this project, and create world-class, internationally recognized research and innovation is core to what it's about, as well as creating skills. This is the big problem. Even with inward investment, do we have enough skills in this area? And even though we do undergraduates, it's important to take them into this sort of environment. Do PhDs, do master's programs, do short courses and skill up. And even we're looking very strongly now at the higher apprenticeship projects, higher level apprenticeship projects, HLAs, to really skill up with health tech properly and understand it deeply. So this is basically where we're going to locate. We just bought Northland House that I think many of you would know. Will not be doing anything with it for the next year and a half until we design it up and fully build it. So in the meantime, we've actually located an integrated diagnostics laboratory. And it's only been opened in this last month, but it's at the heart of COVID and the type of stuff that we're doing, and that'll become clear just in a second. And then there's plans with the Harbour Commission to develop a whole medtech park just across the road from this, and that's at various stages at the minute of planning. With partnerships being looked for and various funding initiatives being looked at in America by a range of different groups. But to be clear, we're going to put something significant into the Royal in a living lab. Northland House will be our main hub, which is across the road from the whole new Greater Belfast development. And then the MedTech Park will grow out of that, because we do know, now this is a sort of pre-COVID statement, but we do know there was a big shortage of real estate in Belfast because we were trying to do inward investments before this in the life and health sciences area, and we struggled big time to find the right location for a company at the size of 40. Now things might change, of course, in the new world, where obviously patterns of work change, etc. So we'll have to see how that sort of pans through. But this is the sort of building here, some of the details behind it. You can see importantly, business support, spin-ins, spin-outs in the top 2 floors, and then a lot of our capability in the downstairs floor, and then the work at the hospital. So a lot of strategic alignment here with the big initiatives, and that's how we're going to get things funded, the aging societies, the industry strategy for funding these initiatives. The building is around about a £40 million city deal initiative. That means the cost of building that, putting in kit and building it up, but we need to run projects on that. So as long as we're well strategically aligned to the UK's mission, this would be a success. We currently bring in about 5 million a year. These sort of buildings need about 3 to 5 million to run. So we're quite comfortable about how we would actually develop this up. And these models, of course, have been tested quite extensively by the Department of Economy, etc. This is just a wee bit more on the overall alignment of all the different strategies that are occurring in this area to help us to fund the whole initiative. I think very importantly, the Department of Health spot into this, very strong MOU with the Department of Health to work together with us, with Dan West, particularly, that some of you may know in the whole intelligence data system, the Harbour Commission, Hirani, that I know was just maybe mentioned earlier, which is a new body that's been set up for life and health sciences to drive it forward, to take it away from that second-class citizen that it maybe currently is, and make it a first-class citizen here. Industry data has been brilliant, absolutely incredible. The big companies like Dell, Microsoft, and BT, with NVIDIA and GE Healthcare, those are the type of companies that really want to be anchors. And then you get a lot of our SMEs benefiting, I think, from that bit of networking, working on software, working on equipment, working on new concepts together, and sharing an open access platform. FDI, we haven't gone intensely into the FDI yet, but we're starting to look at that, and I've had some meetings with American groups to look at that. But FDI sometimes just comes naturally, and I've mentioned 3 companies here that are in various discussions just at the bottom. There's no issue with the market. I mean, typical projects, there's just a wee bit of detail. It might be sepsis monitoring, might be cardiac monitoring, etc. Where we can probably show it off best is when with COVID. We've been at the heart of developing the UK's antibody test, known as the ABC system. Myself and Tara Moore have been extensively involved in validating that, and also designing a lot of those lateral flow tests that you hear about. Modeling for government, developing the apps that are required. Even we get involved in validating and verifying and proofing out the Stop COVID app. That you all hopefully have downloaded. We've also looking at all sorts of new diagnostic tests there as well. These are just some of the examples. Just to highlight the 1,000 jobs, the NPV that you get from something, I guess here around 700, it's a value of over 700 million over a 10-year period. You're looking at annual GDP of about 56 million in the area, and productivity benefits have been estimated by EY at around 20%. I'm not going to show you things, I guess, but we know there's lots of funding that is available, contrary to what you might believe in post-COVID world. Peace Plus is the big one that's coming through, strength in places, bids, etc. We're very much part of that, just waiting for an outcome at the minute. And we have some very important announcements we're going to be making over the next 2 or 3 weeks with companies like PwC, etc. Lots of very good statements coming in from CEOs of these companies backing such a bid. The important MOUs that come with it, we make very, very open so that people can actually see the commitment that's coming in from both the clinical and the academic side. And then just to finish, my last slide is with GBD, many of you know of the many difficulties the universities had at actually getting this project complete. So this summer, there'll be many of us involved in moving in. Computing and engineering is where we are. We will have a bridge link over to CDHT, so right beside it. But this coming to the town, as our previous Vice Chancellor used to say, as they moved in Bangor into Belfast overnight, and that's the challenge we'll have this September. So hopefully with that comes a lot of economic benefit to the city as well, and that we also start to really understand and enjoy this new world. So in summary, I've mentioned about the new CDHT, and it's linked to the Belfast campus. We're bringing this centre very, very cardio and respiratory approach, but also bringing the FDI-centric medtech part to the fore with it as well. The topic is healthcare 4.0 that we talk about. We're addressing that with AI and IoT. And the idea really is that we're bringing all our forces out of the university, out of Northern Ireland, to create the ecosystem along with industry partners and, very importantly, along with the Belfast Trust. Thank you.
Jim, thank you very much for that. That was superb, and it was we're very, very fortunate to have somebody of your caliber with us this morning, giving us that overview, a snapshot there of the origins of the sector in the city, and also I think those value of it in terms of jobs and investment, and also those massive opportunities with digital very much at its heart. So thank you, not just for your presentation, but everything that you have done down through the years, and some really exciting images there around the MedTech Park and other things. I'm sure that'll come up later on in a discussion. There's an opportunity for people to ask questions later. Please use the question and answer function if anything that Jim or indeed Roisin or Dan says later stimulates a question that you might have for them. So without any further delay then, I'm going to hand over to our next speaker. And we're very, very lucky to have a pioneer in terms of health technology in Belfast joining us this morning. So next I'm going to hand over to Roisin Malloy. Roisin is the CEO and founder of TriMedica. And Roisin, the floor is yours to tell us the wonderful story of how TriMedica has grown and is flourishing in our city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simon. I'm just getting loaded up here. Everybody see that okay?
Yes, all good.
Okay, so thanks very much for the introduction, Simon. And I'm taking this, this presentation is a little bit different. I'm looking at the business and how we've developed the business, just to give you an insight on how you get from nothing to a medical device company selling internationally. So I'm Roisin Malloy and I'm the CEO of TriMedica. And really how we get started, we started with an idea. So we have been described as two women in a cupboard. So myself and one of the other co-founders who had we'd previously worked together in another role, and we decided to set up the company because we saw a niche in the market way back, way long before COVID even got there. And it was a product, a very simple product, but something that could affect the level of infection in hospitals, give cost savings to hospitals, and also give time back to nurses. But the two women in a cupboard is important because that was our first marker that we had arrived. We'd started the business, even though it wasn't a cupboard, it was a small office. It was our first step off. But we are three co-founders in this business. So there's myself, Julie, and Paul. So my background, I'm a biochemist originally, background working in pharma and diagnostics for many years, but a lot of my career has been spent in working in hospitals and clinics internationally, selling and marketing into that industry. Julie is a linguist with four languages and a lot of experience in export and communications and marketing. And Paul is our money man, so he's our FD and keeps his hands on the money and keeps us good. So what is the product? So the product is a thermometer, a non-contact thermometer. So I'm going to just show you it here in the video. You've probably seen these on TV or versions on TV. So you simply point the thermometer at the forehead, press the button, and you get a result, and that's your temperature taken. But ours is different from many of the other thermometers you see on TV because ours has been engineered to be used in hospitals. And the two key things for that stipulation are they are robust, so they don't break, and secondly, they are accurate. So they deliver, in many cases, better results than many of the thermometers currently used in our hospitals. But it gives fast, easy, and accurate body temperature reading. All of that was designed here, actually here in Belfast. We have a design team here we work with in Belfast, and manufactured then to meet international manufacturing quality standards. So those standards, we have to obviously have a CE mark to sell the product into the EU, and our notified body is in a German-based notified body, TVSUD, and we have all of the accreditations and standards. So ASTM is the international standard that we adhere to for the manufacturing, production, and selling of this product. We as a company as well, it's very unusual for a startup, smaller company to go for ISO accreditation, but we felt that it was important that the devices were manufactured to the level of quality that we wanted. So we went through the whole process for the ISO 13485. So the key sort of features of TriTemp are we give the nurse back time. So because it is quick and easy, you simply point at the forehead, press a button, and you get the result. Currently in hospitals, thermometers are taken, you put a plastic cap on, and it's put in your ear, your mouth, or somewhere else. That takes time, that takes nurses' time. Also, the fact that all the other thermometers currently used in hospitals use plastic caps or plastic covers, there's huge costs associated with that. So every time a nurse uses a thermometer, the hospital pays an amount of money per plastic cap. That's the first piece. And the second piece then is they have to pay to dispose of those plastic caps, and that is medical grade waste. The patient, with these other thermometers, they have to disturb the patient. With ours, you never touch the patient. So it's zero contact with the patient. 80% of hospital infections are actually carried through contact. So if you can take contact out of the equation, then you can reduce infections. And this is why our thermometer has had such a high profile in hospitals during the COVID pandemic, because you don't touch the patient, there's no risk you can transfer. And then finally, sustainability. We've seen it on the news about the amount of disposal of waste. It's found in our streets and our hospitals and so on. We use zero plastic caps, zero consumables. Therefore, we can reduce that as well, and it's friendlier to the environment. So we are more friendly to the patient, to the user, and to the planet. These thermometers, when they're introduced into a hospital, rolled out across a hospital, and all of our hospitals in Northern Ireland are using these. Certain trusts in Northern Ireland are using only our thermometers for routine use. But these thermometers can save a hospital around 100k a year, just based on the cost savings of plastics and disposal. So there's a significant commercial aspect to this, as well as a very important clinical aspect to it, that you never touch the patient and you don't disturb the patient. So for patients, perhaps oncology patients who are going through chemotherapy and then they are left in the ward to fall asleep, some of the feedback is that they're so disturbed by having a thermometer put in their ear or mouth that can cause them trauma or duress. So this ticks all the boxes for both the patient and the user. So us as a company then, we're very different. Maybe we're not a spin out from any of the universities. We didn't start with a big budget and have a lot of VC investment and so on. We certainly started from a very bootstrap model because we were very fortunate that both with the experience of the co-founders, we had a customer base with a customer need in international markets. So we were able to work with some local investors, angel investors here in Belfast, who thankfully invested in us and got us started. So we established in 2016. And one of the things we wanted to do initially is we knew we had to get our faces out there, our brand out there, and the product out there. When we started in 2016, we didn't have the product yet, but we needed to get the brand and our faces out there. So one of the first things we did was we actually started with the Ulster Bank Accelerator. We have since been on a number of accelerators, and I'll have to say that the Ulster Bank Accelerator was the best step up the ladder to getting our business started. And that was for a lot of key reasons. It was access to networks, access to mentors. John First still is contacted by us regularly, and there's good feedback and communication there. But that was excellent in getting us as a company and a business out there and recognised. We then were, during 2016, we were going through our CE mark and ISO accreditation procedures. So we have a very experienced regulatory team here in the business, and that took a lot of time and also a lot of money, which was very important. Within that year as well, we were the frameworks, which are the purchasing lists that are used by the hospitals in England. They were coming up for renewal for thermometers. So we had a very hard stop of 2017 to have our product to market. So this was the goal at the end of the line. We had to be there. We got our first distributors, started working with them in 2017. Where we had already contact because of our backgrounds. We already had a number of contacts that we'd worked with for years in different capacities out in the market. So we started that off and started presenting some information to hospitals and getting feedback. We had spent around 2 years before we set up the company in 2016 doing a lot of market research. And what we did was we talked to the nurses. The nurses are the people using the device. So we spent a lot of time and effort in the design process of getting an understanding for what the user needs, which is very important to us. So TriTemp was then launched in 2017, October 2017. We got our CE mark, and we were then able to sell, so which was great. We go to once again putting ourselves out there. We went to the big exhibitions around the world. So Medica is the largest exhibition in Europe, and it takes place in Dusseldorf every year, apart from last year and this year, obviously due to COVID. We have been at Medica every year of our existence. Arab Health is the Arab equivalent of that into the Arab nations, and we visited that, and we had a stand and a booth at that every year as well. And we had these booths at Medica and Arab Health through the support from I&I as well, which was obviously very, very important for us to profile us on the international stage with other companies with medical devices. Very soon in 2017, we were very surprised to find that we had been selected for the Maserati 100. So and Sunday Times. So this was actually a group of 100 companies in the UK that were selected as disruptors in their market. And we got that within pretty much our first year of business, which was a great accolade. That meant we were able to carry that on our business cards and a lot of our information, and you'd be surprised just how many people raised that. We went on to many other conferences and took part in many other events. So in the exhibitor of the day at the Royal College of Nursing, it actually took place in 2018 here in Belfast, and we got the exhibitor for the day on the first day. We were also part of the Group British Entrepreneur Awards, where we got some accolades there. We as a company and a group of leaders feel it's very important to ensure that we are always developing our knowledge, not just of the market and the distributors and the customers, but of the models and the technology we need to use within the business. So we took part in the MIT entrepreneur development program, and that was funded through Catalyst, or organized through Catalyst, which was probably one of the best programs I've ever been on, and some of the other two co-founders have been on it since then as well. We then started converting hospitals. So our sort of route to market was to go into hospitals, get a few wards using the devices, which we call seeding the hospitals, and then we go back and we then roll it out across the hospital. So we started getting very sizable hospital conversions all across Europe, the UK, Ireland, Germany, France, where we were rolling that out. So that was starting to pick up real pace and momentum. And then COVID hit in 2020. So what you can see here is a little picture of Rand Turbiddy in the Late Show. Our device was used in all of the COVID centres in the south of Ireland, and it's in every acute hospital in the south of Ireland as well. And they profiled it on the Late Show one evening where a nurse was demonstrating use of our thermometer with Rand Turbiddy, which was great and useful for our PR, of course. We have since gone on to develop 21 distributors in about 20 countries, and you can see there, this is the big COVID challenge, and that's another picture of us being on the on BBC, where it was UCLH in London, and a profiling our thermometer in use. So our aim now is to upscale the business rapidly. So in 1 year we went from 5 to 15 people, and we have very aggressive growth plans to bring the business further. And we've also a very active R&D program to build more products into that. And 2021, our focus for this year is the US market. So a few pictures here just to show us. One of the things we believe in is that you have to be in the ground. You have to be out there with customers. You have to be talking to the users. So you can see us at Arab Health in the top left with Alistair, and also us at Medica and some of the other awards that we've been involved with. And in the bottom right corner, that's one of the hospitals in Vienna that have been using our device for about 2 years now, pretty much since we had it. And we've got lots, but we think it's very important to celebrate these and have reminders of these and what we've achieved over the years, not just for us, for the team, to show how far we have come. This is a map of where we're currently selling, but that map's going to be much covered with more green very, very soon as we move into the US market. Okay, our mission as a company is to put patient care at the centre of medical innovation and develop devices that make healthcare workers' lives easier. One of the reasons we started this business, I had a very close relative who at the time was dying of cancer, and one of her key problems was that she was, after chemo all day, she was sitting and lying in the bed, and they used to waken her every 10 minutes to take temperature. And this is very close to my heart, and it's formed part of our mission statement for the whole company. Our vision is to get these thermometers into every hospital in the world. Yes, we mean every hospital. The world's out there, and with technology and reach, that's not a big ask. We have a lot of work to do, but that's what we're aiming at. And really focusing on device performance, because we know we can make the best devices. I think Jim alluded to it earlier. We have such great brains here in Northern Ireland, and certainly when we visit different conferences and so on, we're way up at the top of the queue when it comes to device performance, and also on ability to design and develop new products, and also outstanding user experience. Customers need to know that they are going to be supported through the whole process, and we put a lot of time and effort into that as well. What I will say here is, though, during COVID-19, we were perfectly positioned. So we didn't just spring up because of COVID-19. We had been in operation for years before that. But at that point in time, we had done all the hard work of getting the product designed, delivered to market with, we were able to ramp up our manufacturing. We had a global footprint already. We had logistics teams to turn it around. And also we have online training tools to get the message to the customers. So this is our fabulous team. You can see here. But it was done with a lot of hard work. And this is some of the team in the warehouse getting their hats on. And that includes us. We roll the sleeves up too. Successes of Termedica, I've put a list here, but there's a lot of successes we've got over the years, thankfully. But the big thing was bringing it from an idea to a product on the market in 18 months was a big coup for us. As I say, we're now in 20 countries. We're now currently developing and moving forward. But one of the other things here is that you need to ensure that you put in the systems and processes on the back end of that, and your CRM, your accounts, your stocking, and so on, so that you can support this when these big things come along. So future of Termedica, we have to respond to sort of 3 key market drivers: COVID-19, Brexit, and then there's a change in the regulatory piece for medical devices, which is happening this year as we speak. Market diversification for us is a focus. We are looking at connected devices in our R&D program. We're looking at developing a connected version of this device and are talking to key partners on the IoT and the telehealth piece, expand into the US, and also to develop key strategic partnerships. And we're currently talking to international corporates on working with them to develop products and OEM our products too. Future is the business. We will scale up the business, the revenue, and also look at our efficiencies. grow the team, and look at rapid commercialization of new products. We can do this quickly. We can get products to market very quickly. And we've now put a whole IP strategy into our process and gathering that. And part of the new normal, as we say, moving out of COVID, is digital marketing and getting the lead generation engine in place. So I'm going to leave here with an ask, because I always ask, put an ask out there, okay? And we have these devices in over 1,000 hospitals internationally. And what we ask anybody that we give presentations to or talk to is, if you see our product, would you send us a wee email, or even better, a photograph of our product in use? So this is what the product looks like on the left, and you can see it being used in one of our local hospitals here in Northern Ireland. So please send them through to us if you see them, because we love to hear and see where the products have got to. Thank you very much.
Roisin, thank you very much. I think I did send Julie an email when I saw one of your thermometers in the Ulster Hospital, so I've done my job. So thank you very much for that. And I think that, you know, we always like to highlight success stories, and I think that is one of them. And you know, I think we all love that ambition of wanting to be in every hospital with something that really does look like it's come from Star Trek. So thank you, Roisin, and well done to you and the team. I'm now going to hand over to another success story. Axial 3D are a company that you might have seen on the news as well recently, because the Prime Minister visited the company whenever he was recently in Belfast. And I'm going to hand over now to the company's founder, Dan Crawford. Daniel, it's all, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Awesome, Simon. Thank you very much. And thanks to you in the chamber for having us here. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Just checking everybody can see that okay?
Yep, all good. Thanks, Daniel.
Awesome. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about my background and sort of the growth story of Axial 3D over the last 4 or 5 years, really, and how our technology and our kind of business ambition has grown over that time. So just a little bit about myself. So as Jim alluded to there, I started life as a biomedical engineer. I did biomedical engineering at the University of Ulster. So very early on, I was exposed to quite a lot of different medical devices and how those went from kind of initial prototyping stage all the way through clinical trials and clinical approvals to get out into the real world and actually be sold. And really where the company started was over when I was doing postgraduate research over at the medical school at the University of Glasgow, and a thing called medical visualization and human anatomy. So basically turning everything complex and two-dimensional that you would find in a hospital, so CTs, MRIs, X-rays, and turning them into easy to understand 3D visualizations to really advance the standards of care in medicine. And from that's where the kind of light bulb moment for Axial 3D really came from, to make these 3D printed medical models that you see on the screen routine in healthcare. Because what we found very, very early on was that if you were giving surgeons, clinicians, radiologists access to physical 3D representations of a patient's anatomy, it was reducing time in theatre, improving care, and actually improving the experience for the patient, being able to consent them when they can actually understand their data. So really, as a company, it's about making that process completely routine. And it's about, we have similar ambitions to Roisin, where we want every hospital in the world to be using 3D printing at the point of care. So when a patient falls or is in a road traffic collision, it's not get me an X-ray or a CT of that patient. We want that language to change to get a 3D print of that patient's anatomy, because ultimately what these models do is make surgeries faster for the actual surgeon. They make it more cost effective for the hospital by reducing the amount of care time they actually need to give to that patient. But the most important thing for us is actually making these surgeries safer for the patient. And when I'm talking about 3D printing and specifically 3D printing anatomical models, what we really have to do here is take these complex 2D images that you see on the screen and delineate or take out the portions of anatomy that the surgeon really, really wants to see, and give it to them in a way that they can understand and conceptualize the entirety of a patient's pathology, as opposed to having to stack those images up in their head and kind of visualize it. And really to give you a bit of an idea of how much of an impact these models have, over the last 3.5 years, we've been surveying thousands of models that have gone out to surgeons all around the world. And 48% of surgeons or their surgeries they actually change the diagnosis or they change the plan if we give them this 3D printed medical model. So that just gives you an idea of the level of impact that these have on patients' care. Really, when I started the company, for those of you who don't know, 3D printing has been around since about 1984, and in medicine, it's been in papers from about, it's been the early 90s, it's been referenced, but the main reason this technology, even though it has huge clinical benefits, isn't available to hospitals all around the world. There's three core issues. So the process of creating the models, so doing a process called segmentation is really difficult, which I'll touch on later. But the actual way in which this data can be transferred to a hospital or a company to turn it into a 3D print is very convoluted and very sort of misdirected. So that's really where us as a company started and where our biggest value proposition came from. So to take advantage of that big issue in the market, we created our first piece of software. So an online application that allowed surgeons anywhere in the world. So it wouldn't matter if it was Belfast or over in Adelaide in Australia, we'd be able to take the data, process it, create a 3D printed medical model and send it out to them within 48 hours of actually receiving the data. And that, for us as a company, that was knocking off two of the three big challenges for getting these medical models to the point of care routinely. And to give you a perspective of the current market norm for creating 3D printed medical models by two of our biggest competitors in Belgium and Colorado is 4 to 6 weeks. But with this new technology that we've patented of collecting this data electronically and then printing it has allowed us to start sending these out in 2 days rather than 6 weeks. So opening up a huge market opportunity for the company. And really, before I kind of take a step back and explain where the biggest innovation for Axial 3D has really come from, I wanted to introduce you to one of our patients. So this is Jonah. Jonah's a 13-year-old kid from Belfast. He's actually had 3 operations in his life, and for those of you who can see the images, he's got very complex scoliosis. So for Jonah, what the surgeon had to do was actually conceptualize all of his anatomy. So there's 102 bits of anatomy that the surgeon is actually having to conceptualize here. So all the vertebrae, the spine, the ribs, and all of the metalwork running up Jonah's spine. So what we did as a company was we were able to process that data in about 4 to 5 hours and create a physical 3D print of Jonah's spine. And with this physical 3D print, the surgeon was able to take off 2 hours of Jonah's surgery and also figure out and find a new pathology that he hadn't actually seen on the original scans. So when we developed the web application, we were getting out and taking more and more of the UK and Irish markets. But this was one of the cases where we really took a step back and said to ourselves, why is this not being used everywhere around the world? And really, it's that process there I alluded to, so the 4 to 5 hours. It's a process called segmentation. So to take these images and turn them into 3D models, it's extremely complex. It takes a knowledge of anatomy, it takes knowledge of medical physics, of how the CT scans are made up, and it also takes knowledge of how what the engineering principles behind 3D printing are. So really, it's graduates from the degree that Jim was talking about, which are relatively in short supply. And after we got our initial seed funding and we grew the business, we really said, right, if we're going to take on the global market, if we're going to go to the States and Australasia, what's the big issue here? And it is that segmentation piece. And when we multiplied up the amount of models that we would need to make to address this market, we quickly found a big problem. So for us to address the market every year, we were going to need 3,000 years of processing power, and that's with no breaks, no sleep, no nothing. So 10 engineers taking 3,000 years every year to address the market is certainly something that can't be done. So what we did was we took a step back and repositioned the company to develop software. So proud to say as Axial 3D, we're one of the centers of excellence now for creating machine learning products for healthcare applications in the heart of Belfast. So what we were able to do was create an algorithm that could do this 4 to 5 hour process in minutes. So training an algorithm to do the process that a biomedical engineer would take 4 to 5 hours to do. And just to give you an idea, this is a case that came in about 2 months ago into the company. So similar case to Jonah's, it's a scoliosis case of a spinal deformity. And this is the algorithm running and doing the process that a person would take 4 to 5 hours to actually complete. And on the AWS cloud, we're able to do this in minutes now. So it means that we can feasibly scale up the company to really, really address this market need and make 3D printing in medicine routine. And I suppose if I'm looking forward for us as a company, it's we've unlocked something here, which is we can now automatically take any 2D image to create a patient-specific 3D model of any patient's anatomy. And really our first product, I suppose if you call it that, is these 3D printed anatomical models. But everything in medicine is taking a shift towards being patient-specific. If your care is patient-specific, they can provide a much better standard of care when a surgeon or radiologist or clinician is actually treating you. So what we're starting to look at is how we can take that same core technology that we've built and convert that into other applications in terms of cutting guides, surgical implants, or things like training models by using augmented reality or virtual reality. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're headed to as a company. And really, sort of at the core of what we do is improving patient care. Like with everything that we will do over the next few years, we will always focus on the patient benefits. And you know, I think for us as a company, you know, the things that get us out of bed and allow us to kind of work as hard as we do are the stats that we're getting back from patients and from surgeons. So over the last 5 years, we've improved thousands of pediatric patients' care, like Jonah's. We've saved tens of thousands of hours of surgical time, and that reduces complications for hundreds and hundreds of patients. And actually through all the models that we have sent out, we've actually had feedback from surgeons that we've actually saved 6 lives. So for us as a company, these are the things that drive us and allow us to really motivate Axial 3D and how we're going to be taking that next step and what we need to do in the future. But thanks very much for listening, everybody. And Simon, I'll hand it back over to you.
Dan, thank you very much. Again, another really exciting story, and thank you for taking us through that. And I think that, you know, hopefully what your presentation and Roisin's as well has done is to show people, many of whom are not obviously involved in health technology, who are listening to this event, that, you know, Belfast really is leading the world in healthcare technology. We have a little bit of time just for a few questions, maybe one question each before we wrap up, because I'm conscious of everybody's time. So I want to go back to you first, Jim, if that's okay. And just a couple of things I wanted to pick on. There's lots and lots of really key points within your presentation, but can I get you expand a little bit about that importance of one person? And you mentioned Professor Anderson, and you know, I think if you go to other sectors that are growing in Belfast, you will find similarly, if you go back a number of years, one person who was critical. How critical is that? You know, that's that moment, that person, all those years ago, and maybe also get you to touch on. You mentioned the purpose of this of the CDD project around the CDHC is around, you know, it's also economic as well as health, and sometimes the debate in the last year has been a little bit sort of health versus the economy, and the economy had to take a back seat for health. But you know, do you see the future every bit as much as you know, that there is a linkage and a connection, and that, you know, whilst obviously people's health is a priority, there are opportunities for economic growth, job creation, and investment as well?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I suppose to the point, Simon, I mean, you need to probably have known the likes of John Anderson and even Professor Pantridge in the early days. I mean, John, like many, I suppose, wonderful people and entrepreneurs, are very single visioned, and they have a very strong mantra. Now, John, probably, if you trace back, we used to work at ICL and in Carrickfergus, and was in tears the day that the 5,000 jobs I think it was 2 to 5,000, I can't remember the exact number, jobs disappeared. And he walked across the line, as I say, in tears and that, and never forgot that moment. So his passion in life here in Northern Ireland was to create jobs for young people. And that was core to all his thinking. I mean, nearly everything he tackled, he ended it with, well, let's create jobs. And that was a single vision with a lot of that. Now, I mean, he was an innovator and could bring, he was very charismatic and could bring people together, undoubtedly. I think he knew very strongly how to say no to a lot of things. So he kept that singular vision going. But I can draw a lot back to John's single vision, that not just the university, but at that sort of the healthcare ecosystem here in Northern Ireland. The bit about economy and healthcare, I think, Simon, you would know the answer to that. I mean, I think when you were a politician, you knew that collectively yourselves and I think government way back in 2011 got it. You know, that our health department, of course, is that large budget that I talked about earlier. Could innovation be part of that to create better healthcare systems and better jobs? We've seen that partially work. I think a lot more has to be done to make that work effectively. But undoubtedly it ends up win-win. We've heard the examples today that those companies will grow, they'll create the 50, 100 high quality jobs, but you'll see that the knock-on benefits. The knock-on benefits are intrinsic. You know, it's what it does to clinicians, how it innovates their mind, how it motivates, how it attracts the best clinicians to here. So there's a lot of all other benefits that you maybe don't see. And that's probably the message that we would in that area, bringing economic and health together.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. I mean, I think Northern Ireland was the first region in the world where its health department and economy department signed a memorandum of understanding to reap those economic benefits from that big health budget. And while sometimes that debate, as I said, has been characterized as health versus the economy, you're right. It was the penny dropped many years ago that there were more than pennies to be made from those ancillary outputs. So again, thank you for that answer. Dan, I thought, obviously, as well as an entrepreneur himself and somebody who's worked in industry, Jim's part of university. We're very fortunate to have 2 really good universities in the city, both top 10 performers in the UK for bioscience research. So, your company is a spin out from that. So how important is that linkage between the research element and businesses like yours, but also in attracting talent? And I know that you have employed a lot of people from Northern Ireland, but your company's also employing a lot of people from outside of Northern Ireland. So how is that sector, the health sector in Northern Ireland, actually attracting talent and bringing it to places like Belfast?
Yeah, that's a good question, Simon. So really, like we've had really, really good experience with particularly Ulster University over the last 5 years as we've grown. Because I think the talent coming out of the universities is fantastic. Like the biomedical engineering course, the mechanical engineering courses, the physics, the math courses that we're looking at, hiring from, everybody that we've got from there have had a huge uplift to the company. And I think really, one of the things there is there's quite a focus around industry as opposed to not just being in a classroom and learning modules. With the biomedical engineering course in particular, you're, I was going to use the word forced, but it's the wrong word to use. You're encouraged to take a year out in industry, and I was actually fortunate enough to do mine in telesense with Jim, and I probably learned more in those 12 months than I did in the other 3 years in the biomedical engineering degree, and that's what we find with all of our other graduates. And really for us as a company, like attracting talent is really hard, and we've found to be a real benefit to look a lot wider than just Belfast. So we've got, well, there's 40% of our company is not actually from Northern Ireland. So from Europe, from the US, and from the South, and I think a lot of companies here, we need to look a bit further afield and attract people inwards rather than always just looking in Belfast, because I think Belfast has a lot of stuff to offer, around the periphery. There's a really good standard of living. It's relatively cheap to live here. And, we had an engineer yesterday looking at houses who's moving over from London, and he's rented for 9 years, and he's shocked that he can get a mortgage in 3 months. So like Northern Ireland's an attractive place to be for anyone. So I think that's one thing that we need to really shout about and bring talent in, rather than just sort of creating the ecosystem internally here.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. We do focus a lot in this place on retaining talent, and we've lost a lot of people down through the years, but it's also important as particularly, sectors like health technology has that potential to bring in people. If you're doing the best here, then the best will want to come here. So I think that's really, really good point. And just finally, Roisin, I want to come to you for the last question, and it's back to that sort of health and the economy side of things. I mean, obviously, whenever TriMedica, and when you were in that cupboard and you were starting the company, you couldn't have really foreseen a pandemic on the scale that we have experienced over the last year. And obviously, it has been a incredibly difficult year, a tragic year for many, but I think you used to feel perfectly positioned. So having a non-contact thermometer in the market being used at this time has had you perfectly positioned. And do you think that has, out of what has been an awful series of events, that you have shown that in Belfast, TriMedica is developing this unique product, which can have all of those benefits that you cited, and do you see that almost like as a catalyst for that growth and that map and getting more of those green dots?
Yeah, I mean, just during the talks there, someone had come on and asked a question about competition from the Far East. This is where it makes a difference. The design and the engineer really makes a difference in what you're getting, and that's not just in thermometers, that's in everything. But what we do is we have a way of doing things which is looking at the user as the who feeds us the information for the design, and making sure the design is robust, and getting it out there. So all of the trials, all these hospitals, when they bring in new technology, every one of them will trial the device against what they're currently using, and all the trials have shown that we are, the accuracy and the performance is there. So we don't have to hide that. We don't have to. We want to shout about that. We're lucky from the point of view that our founders are. We have travelled internationally working for other companies before we did this. So maybe some people would think that the international travel and the world market's very like it's a big thing to do. We don't. We think the world's getting smaller, and it's not a challenge for us, not a challenge to go anywhere. But one of the things that we have seen during COVID as well, and there's a lot of talk around even things like mental health of people during COVID and so on. We put a lot of emphasis on the culture of the business as well, and how we work as a business internally, and a lot of time and effort into our core values and working with our teams. And what we found as well in sort of researching. Previous to COVID, we were feet in the ground. We worked through a distribution network. We got into the hospitals. We were in among the users. Then COVID hit and they locked the hospitals up. No one was allowed in the hospitals. And what we had to do as a business was to respond to that. So we did that accordingly, and we used technology pretty much to get around that. But what we've now found in doing that is that it hasn't just happened to us as the supplier, it's happened to the users as well. So they used to, in most cases, enjoy people coming in and telling them about new stuff and what was happening and so on, and they don't have that access now. So we have a requirement to then put that in place. So that's one of the things we're focusing on, is actually giving the users and the hospitals the information they need. And I think really when you're servicing a true need in a market, then it's going to tell its own story. And also bringing it to what we do a lot, and we talk a lot about, is thinking about the next thing. And as Jim alluded to with the connected centre, that is the next big thing in healthcare. In the next few years, connected health is going to be a given, and that's why the new devices we're developing will be connected versions that will then bring that to the next level.
Sure, thank you. And just to kind of prove your point, Roisin, that the world is getting smaller. There's a question that's just come in from Joe Burke. Joe's an old friend of Belfast Chamber. He is listening in from Pennsylvania at the moment. So you were talking about growth in the US. So we will make sure that we make that connection, and Joe might be able to help you with that plan. So thank you for that answer. And again, can I just leaves it to me then to thank everybody, and particularly to thank Jim and Roisin and Dan for not just for their time today, which we're immensely grateful for, but all of that work that they have done to make Belfast a leading city in the world in terms of healthcare technology. So thank you for everything you've done. Well done for those success stories, and keep at it. And thank you again for your time this morning. Can I also then just conclude by thanking Aileen and the team at Ulster Bank for their support for this Belfast Talks Business series. It's greatly appreciated and wouldn't be possible without them. Can I also thank Neil and Catherine at ND Events for helping to make sure everything ran smoothly. And the next in our series in our Belfast Talks Business series is due on the Thursday, the 17th of June. So please go to our website and you can register for that event. And you'll also see that's belfastchamber.com, and you also will see a number of other events that we're hosting over the next number of weeks. So please feel free to register for those as well. So and finally then, just again, thank you everybody for coming along this morning. We hope you enjoyed that and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.